message for the ladies and gentlemen around the world and all the ships at sea.
We all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us.
So choose wisely. Subscribe to It's Erik Nagel wherever shows are found, on whatever platform you choose. And as always, leave us a positive review. Would you kindly? It's Erik Nagel. It starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen of the universe, the next voice you hear.
It's Erik Nagel.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of It's Erik Nagel. It's just myself this time around, as we're going to talk to artist named Sam Sawyer in just a moment. I love getting a chance to talk to artists, to creators, to actors and musicians, anybody that, one, was willing to talk to me. I'll talk to anybody. But two, people that are really involved with the creative process, who are starting stuff from nothing and building something. And hopefully we're going to get to talk to them and meet them right when they're at the cusp of getting this thing launched. And maybe it'll do something wonderful and fantastic for them. It'll be a huge success. Sometimes they're not, but it's always good to talk to them at this level to find out how it happens. Like, you might be out there listening, it's like, look, I want to do things, but I just don't even know how to get started, or maybe I just never had the drive or the whatever to start something on your own. That's why we like talking to people like this, where you find out what was the thing that got their ass in gear. Where did the creative spark come from? How did they make this happen, or how are they making this happen for themselves? Because I really think it does something good for people when they hear these kind of things. They're like, wow, this isn't as difficult as I thought, or this might be achievable for me to do something on my own. I can develop my own movie. I can develop my own book or album or product line or artwork, any of those things. I always find it fascinating to talk to people and see the process, to hear the process, where they came from, what they're doing with it, and where they hope to go with this. And this is no different as we put this little special episode out for you. Sam Sawyer is an artist who is developing this series called Salem. It's going to be a new animated series that she's running a Kickstarter for. You can look up Salem on Kickstart and see what this is all about. Help her out. Throw some shekels, throw a couple coins her way to help her out with this, because who knows? This thing could be the next big animated project out there, and then another studio picks it up, and then, give it a couple years. All of a sudden, you're seeing a major motion picture of this project, and you go, wow, I remember when this whole thing started. I helped crowdfund this thing. So let's talk to Sam Sawyer right now. I love talking to the creative types. I love the people that have this idea, that have this passion, that go out and try to get it done by any means necessary. And more times than not, as we see in today's world, you can't wait for a company to figure it out and say, hey, this is a great piece of art. This is a great concept. We should pick this up and develop this. You have to go out now and do it yourself and make everything happen for yourself. And then somebody comes around and goes, hey, we like this. This is a great idea. We want to get into the business with you of doing this. And then you're at the point where you go, I don't need you because I'm doing so well with this on my own, or it's about time you guys caught up to what we're doing here, and let's get this ball rolling. This is what we're dealing with right now with Sam Sawyer. She has this brand new project that she was doing a Kickstarter for. We're going to get into that in just a second. It's already achieved its goal, which is fantastic for you. But the project is called Salem. Sam Sawyer's here with me right now. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing really great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Tell us all about Salem. What is this?
So Salem is a project that I created years and years ago that we just recently started getting up and going, exactly because of what you were talking about. I didn't want to have to wait around for a network to give me a green light, when with the power of crowdfunding these days, it is more than doable to pretty much just do it ourselves.
So where did the concept come from? I mean, now we're going to get into the fact that you're doing your crowdfunding. You're going to make this happen. You've got people cast and everything for this project. But where did this come from? How did this come out of your head? Like, was this just something you were kicking around, or did you accidentally stumble upon this? Everybody has a different, unique story. What is yours?
So I guess my story starts back in middle school, when I drew this weird-looking picture of a monster with 4 eyes and these long limbs and the spiky hair. And I really liked the idea of telling the story from a monster's perspective. And as I grew older and I wanted to do something with this character, the story slowly but surely began to develop as I began to have more and more ideas for it. And as I did, the story turned out, it was always supposed to be about the monster. It was always supposed to be from the perspective of a monster, because we always hear the story of a human in a monster's world. And so this time I decided to flip the switch and do a monster in a human world.
Now, you don't see that happen too often where the monster is brought into the world, and usually it being a positive. I think the only other example, and now I can't even say those are monsters, those are more like alien types that happen to come into a human world and try to function and all that. But yeah, if you go to the monster route, usually it's not a positive aspect. So this one is just taking that same concept but going, it's like, no, we're going to show you what it's like for the monster to come into a human world.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to create a positive outlook and a positive story about this monster that is trying to fit in and also trying to discover who they are as well. And also, in this case, trying to discover what they are.
So tell us about the world of Salem. So Salem's here, is figuring everything out in a human world. Does Salem have friends? Are there other main characters to the story? What's going on?
All right, so Salem isn't just our only character in the series. They are accompanied by their two best friends that they meet in the very first episode of the story, and their names are Petra and Oliver. Petra is our psychic medium who is actually quite terrified of ghosts, which makes that a little difficult to deal with.
Right.
And then we have Oliver, who is a brilliant kid, but a little klutzy. He is a really great photographer, but his goals in life is to become a cryptozoologist. And for anyone who may not be familiar with that term, cryptozoology is the study of the unknown. And it quite literally translates to hidden animals. And so it's all about the study of hidden animals that we may or may not know exist.
So not only is it the perspective of this creature trying to find its way in this new world and making friends and figuring everything out as it goes along, but it's also now another layer to it where they're finding other life forms that are in our lives that we just don't know about.
Yeah, so are you familiar at all with the term cryptid?
Yes.
So yeah, it brings to question whether or not all these creatures that we potentially have seen or they might be real, those guys, they're on the hunt for those. So Bigfoot and the Mothman, the Jersey Devil, all of those creatures that may or may not be real, that's what they're looking for.
Okay, so it's of myth and legend is what they're looking for to try to prove they're real. Not that they're here around us, we just don't see them. We have to figure out a different way to learn how to see them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole new perspective of our world.
Now, I'm seeing the artwork here. I want to jump to the Kickstarter real quick, and then we can dive a little deeper. The Kickstarter that you've been running for a while now, and I think it ends this week, at the end of this week, right?
Yeah, it actually ends. It ends at 7:00 California time on Thursday.
Okay, so that's 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. So if you go on Kickstarter and you look up, is it Salem one word or is it Salem the abbreviation?
It is Salem one word, nice and easy.
SALEM. You go on there and you'll find the Kickstarter page. You see about the story. You see about Samantha. Now I'm seeing the artwork that's here for the characters when you're looking at just the general sections, or if you're looking the little tabs that you have for the story, for the characters, and the layout for the characters that look like Polaroids that you have. Is this the artwork that you're just using now for this Kickstarter, or is this the artwork that's going to be used, hopefully, as you go forward to make the first episode?
This is definitely the style that we want to gear towards and aim to create the series with. I'm very particular when it comes to art styles and how things look, especially color. And so one of the biggest parts of our storytelling is going to be the art and the colors, because I feel that, you can tell a story without any words. You can use only color to portray an emotion. And so that's what we're aiming for.
I'm looking at the artwork here. What would you call this style? Because for me, I mean, I don't know all the specifics of the different styles, but looking at this one in particular, it looks like a cross of... It's sort of got a Japanese animation feel, but it's kind of softer for an American kind of intake on it.
Yeah, it's honestly, the style kind of came about from how I personally draw, and we just kind of went and rolled with it. I wouldn't even say that there's an actual name or a specific style that it is referenced towards, but it definitely did have a very much like kind of an anime inspiration without being completely Japanese inspired, if that makes sense.
No, that does. So you did this artwork yourself?
The artwork that you see on the Kickstarter page was it's actually from a couple different artists. Myself, one of my concept artists, one of our storyboard artists. We've all kind of pitched in to create the style that you see and make it really nice and clean and polished for animation.
So the goal on the Kickstarter page, I don't want to say this because it's not a deterrent by any means, but you hit your goal and that's fantastic, because a lot of people never, when they're doing these kind of things, sometimes they don't hit that goal that they need to make this a reality. But you hit that, and not only did you hit it, you far exceeded it. And I'm not saying that as a deterrent. I want people that are listening, if you're interested in art and interested in these kind of things, when you go and look at this page, they're still open for a bit long. Throw some more money at her, because the more she gets, the more she can do with this stuff, and the better she can make these projects, or the more episodes that she can eventually crank out. Now, I see the main goal was to do one episode. I think it was like 11 minutes. Is that what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right, an 11-minute feature for the first episode. You being an artist, you have some of your friends doing this concept art. Doing animation is a whole nother world compared to just doing art like this. So you're doing the basic layouts for this stuff, but then you got to get a team to animate all of these things. Have you done this before, or who do you have in mind to help you with the animation?
So thankfully, because I don't have too much experience just yet in the world of animation, we've actually been working really closely with this guy named Swampy Marsh, who is one of the co-creators of Phineas and Ferb. And Swampy is incredible, and he has been not only helping us out by giving us all the advice we could need, but also we've been talking with Swampy, who owns Surfer Jack Productions, to potentially see if we could do the animation through his production company. And even if we don't, we also Swampy knows everybody.
Yeah.
So we've got some really great directions we can go down.
That's fantastic, because look, if you don't know Phineas and Ferb, they're kind of a big deal. They're kind of a big deal. They're a Disney property, and now with the launch of Disney Plus this week, it's going to be even bigger to a worldwide audience that may not have known them to begin with. But they got characters walking around the park. That once you're a character walking around the park, you're not just big Disney big. You're now Disney super big. So this guy would definitely be the guy, one of the guys to talk to and put you in the right direction for all of this. So now that you hit the goal, and Kickstarter is going to be done in a little bit here, so you take this. What's the next stage for you? So you take this, and then you got to find the right company to produce this thing, and then when do you get started?
So honestly, we've already gotten started. We had a production meeting yesterday all about finding some of the first key components to creating the series, which is hiring our writer, finding a line producer to be able to basically tell us exactly what happens when, and reaching out and looking for people to do. We need more storyboard artists. We're looking for pretty much putting all the pieces together so that as soon as the Kickstarter ends, we can just get the ball rolling immediately. Because, first of all, we have to get the story in place. Then comes the storyboards. We're hoping to start recording voices in December. We're trying to make sure that we can be as efficient as we can with our time and all of the money that was donated to us through Kickstarter.
Now, you mentioned the voices here and the casting for this, and I'm looking at the casting, and you have a friend of mine, I guess, agreed to do this project for you.
Oh, yeah?
Rob Paulsen.
Yes, love Rob.
So the people you have cast for the characters here have agreed to do it. They just haven't recorded their stuff yet. So
we've actually recorded. We did our animatic trailer as well as about 5 mini shorts that we did on our YouTube channel just to test out the characters, hear the voices, and get people excited for the series. So we have recorded, and we've done a little bit. And so we are super excited to actually officially record and get started with the first episode, hopefully in late December or early January.
Where you said it's on YouTube. Where on YouTube can people go and look at this now for some of these early works that you did?
Yeah, so you can check out some of the shorts and the animatics that we did on this, I believe it's the YouTube channel called the Salem series.
I'm pulling it up right now as we talk.
Awesome. You can check it out. We have...
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, we recorded those back in February, and we wanted to be able to give people something we wanted people to see it in motion and hear the characters and hear the voices as we were kind of gearing up to take the show and take the idea into further production and kind of decide where we wanted to take it.
When you're looking through the artwork and the concept art that you have laid out here, if you can get this going, right, and get the right people paying attention to this, your art style and the way you have this laid out, you're perfect for Hot Topic.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause look at it this way. You get this ball rolling now. Give it a year. By the next holiday season, there could be potential that you start seeing, the shirts on the wall, the little figures, the little, what are those phone things at the back to hold your phone, the popping things.
Oh, yeah, pop sockets.
Yeah, all those little knickknacks that you only find a lot of these properties in a store like Hot Topic. And maybe an FYI if they... go that route, but usually this is where a lot of newer art stuff starts and gets the chance to be successful with merchandise and with figures and all of those things, thanks to a store like Hot Topic where, it's kind of, you got to really be proven and successful in order to get into Walmart or Target or even Amazon at some point. But looking at the art style, this is perfect. That's for a Hot Topic clientele and an audience. This is definitely right in their alley.
That would be incredible. And my little emo self in 7th grade would be really happy to see their artwork in Hot Topic.
So you do art, you do con shows, right?
I do, yes.
All right, do you do San Diego?
So I have attended for the last few years. I've done panels at the show, but I've never actually sold at San Diego because that is my convention to go and to network and to talk to people and just have a good time.
All right, because I was trying to figure this out. It seemed, the whole thing here, when this was being pitched to me, it seemed familiar, but I couldn't place how I may have run into this before, even when I was looking through social media and the artwork and stuff online. And I was just wondering, I'm like, she has to have been at a con somewhere, because we do our show from San Diego and from New York Comic Con the last several years. We do the radio broadcast from there. And I was just wondering if at some point we either crossed paths or maybe a publicist offered to talk to you about something, because you looked familiar and this looked familiar, but I couldn't place where I knew this from.
I wouldn't doubt it if we had crossed paths sometime over the last few years at a convention.
Do you do New York at all?
I have yet to be to New York, and I'm really hoping that I can try and get out in 2020.
Because New York, I mean, a lot of cons are big for, some celebrity photographs and signings, or just going there to shop, if you will. But out of the two major cons of New York and San Diego, you have a bigger artist presence that I think at New York Comic Con than you do at San Diego. And it's more accessible. It's very hands-on. You're walking through aisles. They're there at their booths with their artwork. You get to talk to the artist. You get to share stories. You get them to sign their pieces for you. And I really think if you can get out to New York at some point, one, you could come back on the show here and talk with us, but two, you go down there, you're going to be surprised the foot traffic that you get in their artist alley down there and for selling your artwork. That
would be incredible, and it's definitely been on my list. I've been trying for the last few years, but I don't know, it's a hard show to get into, but maybe things will change now that we've got a show coming out. We'll see what happens, but it would be so much fun. Doing all this kind of art stuff, what were your influences? Like, what made you think to go... I saw some of your other artwork, and it doesn't look anything like this, what you're doing with Salem here. What made you, kind of branch out a little bit from the artwork that you were doing to kind of go into this character kind of driven art? Yeah, it kind of just all happened, and it's hard to even really pinpoint how. I started drawing these cute little characters, and they kind of transformed into their own beings. And honestly, the art style is almost like it's a very, very different part of my artist repertoire, I guess. like, don't get me wrong, I love pouring hours and hours and hours into a digital painting, which is what most of my pieces are. But, obviously for cartoons and even for comics, you have to shorten things and you have to make them a bit easier to work and to draw over and over again. So Salem and the style of it kind of became about of how I would simplify my own personal style to be something that could be recreated, whether it was by a company or by independent artists.
What were your influences? Like growing up and figuring out that you're good at art and this is a passion of yours. What were your influences?
So I guess like cartoon wise, some of my biggest inspirations as a kid were those early late 2000s shows like The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Invader Zim, all of those cartoons that were a little bit darker than the typical ones that you would see.
I get more people telling me to watch Invader Zim for the last several years, and I'm a big animation fan, and I don't know why I haven't pulled the trigger on watching that yet. I know I think it's on Netflix right now, right? Or it's on
the special that they did, they brought it back and they did like an hour-long special, so that's on Netflix. Yeah,
but as people were saying, it's like, oh, you'd love Invader Zim, and I never went to do that. I'm gonna have to put that on my list to go and watch that.
It's on Hulu, so I think you have no choice now. I think you have to watch it now.
Of course I do. Now that I got the Disney Plus thing with Hulu, so now it's available to me. I should watch it. What other shows? So you like Courage the Cowardly Dog is an interesting choice because that's one of those shows that people remember watching but never really bring up as a point of, oh my God, you need to watch that show. Like, because that was creepy. Like those old people in there, it almost comes off looking like a horror cartoon, but it really never gets there. It has the traces and the potential to do so, and then the dog fixes everything, and then it never happens.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something about it that I just loved so much. Maybe it was because my parents didn't like me watching it because it was creepy.
Probably.
But it was just, I don't know. That was one of the ones that actually like stuck out in my memory of really, really enjoying it as a kid. I nearly named my dog Courage, but he wasn't pink and he wasn't courageous, so it wasn't going to work.
What about, I don't know if this might predate you a little bit, but what about Rocko's Modern Life?
So I was just on the cusp of, I believe I was on the tail end of Rocko's Modern Life, because I remember watching it, but it wasn't one of my favorites, and I think it's because I was a little young when it was originally airing.
It was during that time period in the 90s where Nickelodeon and Disney both figured out that they could make cartoons for kids, but throw a lot of stuff in there to keep the adults interested while they're watching it with their kids. And not have it be like the 80s cartoons where parents are just like, I can't watch this. This is driving me crazy. But you had shows like Rocko had a lot of adult humor. Rugrats were really the ones I think that perfected it first, along with Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. And then it creeped in going into the 2000s where SpongeBob, if you sit down and watch, SpongeBob's great to watch, whether it's on in the background or if you really sit and focus it. But if you sit and focus on it, there's a lot of adult stuff in that cartoon.
Oh, yeah. And, man, I used to hate SpongeBob when I was little just because it was so, like, mind-numbing. But now I just love it.
Oh, yeah. If you go... But, all right, so you looked at it again with new eyes and a fresh take on it as you got a little older. You should go back and revisit Rocko's Modern Life because there's new episodes on Netflix, but you can get the box set or whatever Nickelodeon streaming thing is. I'm forgetting. I think it's off their website or something where you can watch the older episodes. I think you'd find you'd have a new appreciation for it.
Oh, I'd love to. You know what? I'm going to add it to my list if you add Invader Zim to yours.
Of course. Well, you're not the first to threaten me with that, saying that it's like you need to watch Invader Zim. A lot of people have told me that. I will do that, I promise. What about, so that was growing up, but what about as you were getting older and up to where you are now? What's out now that's influencing you or that you find really interesting to watch it from an artist perspective?
Oh man, I guess it's not even, it's something that I grew up with, but it's something that has carried well into my adulthood. Was still one of my favorites of all time was the Avatar: The Last Airbender series.
I've heard good things about that too. Another thing I have not watched, but I know a lot of people loved it.
it's wonderful, and rewatching it actually, which I've been doing recently, is just, it's really fascinating because there's a lot of points in it and a lot of adult concepts and ideas that I never truly grasped when I was younger. Like, there's a whole episode where these poor people are they're basically trapped on an island because they're different. And it's like, wow, doesn't that seem familiar in today's world? This is crazy. Like, they really hit on some deep topics that as a kid you just would never pick up on.
What are your feelings of like Rick and Morty?
You know, I'd say I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Like, I really like it, but the art style to me is kind of not the prettiest.
Yep.
But then again, it can't really be pretty because it's an adult cartoon.
Yeah, it's one of those animated pieces where it's more the story than it is the actual animation. Like, I think over time they could get progressively worse with the animation, and either people wouldn't notice it or they wouldn't care because of the dialogue and the story being so strong.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the reasons I actually continue to be excited to watch new episodes and to listen to the story, because it does have those multi-level stories and ideas that are just so deep in there, which is really fascinating. But sometimes I just can't get over how ugly it looks. And I'm sorry, but it's the artist in me. I'm like, why? Make your lines pretty.
You're looking at these stories now, so that's another thing that another skill you have to develop on your own, because not only are you doing the artwork for it and you're now set to do the animation, you got the voice work going. How hands-on are you going to be as far as story development?
I definitely want to be as involved as I can without writing the dialogue, just because I wouldn't consider myself a writer, but I would say I'm pretty darn good with coming up with situations and concepts and kind of like the overall outlines. I really like being involved with that, but man, like actual writing, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. Like, writing's easy, but it really isn't. It's
hard to write as somebody would talk and then have it make sense and not have it seem like, oh, you wrote that and you're just memorizing this dialogue here. A lot of this has to make sense. So you're looking at it more of being sort of like a supervisor role as far as the story development goes, and then bringing in talented people to help you actually, you know, whittle it out and find the right dialogue and find the voice for each character. Yes, that's exactly what I'd like to do. Just, you know, I want this to be the best that it possibly could be. And, you know, one of the biggest things as a creator to learn is that you can't do everything yourself. And if you can surrender that little bit of, not even like surrender, but if you can give that little portion of the show and put it into someone else's hands, and as long as you trust them, like, you can create something really, really beautiful. Like, you know, some of the best things in life have come from collaborations that people have come together to do. You know, like, two heads are definitely better than one. I've always found it being that I don't do your kind of art. I do broadcasting and that stuff, where it's always been me doing everything myself. And when I try to pass it off, it doesn't always work. And I understand what you're saying, and that's great if you can figure that out and you can do that. But it just seems the way everything has been going lately, as far as anybody's job, the economy, or just a career in general, you went from trying to get a job where it's like, you have this one job, this is your main job, and you're going to do this job, to then, you know, somewhere excel, and then maybe you'll be in charge of working that job and have people and a team working with you, to now it's like you're looking to get one single job. Doesn't really seem feasible anymore, because everyone has multiple jobs now to get things going, and that's all relying on having to do it yourself, because you can't get that network job, you can't get that corporate job to, like in the older days, where you could, like, I could sell this, they'll take it and they'll make it, and we'll have development teams and animated teams and all this stuff. You got to do everything yourself here. So if you could figure that out, God bless you. Maybe one day you'll just be like, I sit over there, they bring all this money to me, and they do all the work. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it? Great. Then all you have to do is you show up at cons with the artwork and T-shirts and figures. You sign stuff. You do Q&As. You do panels. And I guess that's where every artist wants to be. It's like I want to put my work out there, then I want somebody else to do it for me, and I'll just reap the benefits of it.
That's true, but then what would be the fun in that if you don't get to do anything yourself?
100% true. But if you do anything long enough, eventually you'll be like, you know what? Like you just said, I need to learn to let this go, and I'll let them make this stuff. Like Matt Groening, I've idolized this guy for many years. Huge fan of The Simpsons since it started. And from where he started to where it is now, he goes out, he's the figurehead. He still has a lot of love for it. He goes to the script readings and supervises stuff, but he can't do everything anymore for as big as that got and for as long as it's going. Yeah. Eventually, when you're an artist that has your property hit and then it takes off, you got to have a whole team where eventually you're not even doing it anymore. Like you're there, you're a part of it and making sure it's done right, but it's not you doing the work anymore.
That's true, but that's also a really exciting place to get to because then...
Oh, yeah, it is.
Like you planted the seeds and you've watered it and you've gotten to see it grow into a tree, but then what's really cool about that is that after that project has grown its roots and started growing, now it's time to plant another one.
I was talking to Justin Roiland a few years ago about Rick and Morty when it was developing with him and Dan Harmon, and he was saying it got to the point where they were focusing on the TV show so much that when they were spinning it off into a comic book and to a couple other things, he was supervising, and he goes, but I have nothing to do with that anymore. He got the right people in charge, and they're doing the dialogue and making putting the words in the mouths of these characters for the printed version. And he says every time they come up with a new one, he's like, it's my work, but it's all new to me. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're doing. We just said, hey, what if they had this happen in the story? Okay, cool. And then like 2 months later, when the book's done, he looks at it and he's looking at it like a fan would. For the first time, and it's the work he made, which is just mind-blowing that you did all this stuff and you still don't have it's all always surprising to you. Other people are doing this for you. Yeah.
It's a weird place to get to, and I'll let you know how I feel if I ever get to that point.
I'll clarify. Those are good problems to have. We're not complaining about this. We're just saying it's amazing when it gets to that level that these are all good problems to have.
Definitely.
Let's remind everybody to go over to kickstarter.com and type in Salem, SALEM, and you can find Samantha Sawyer's artwork, and you can find the whole concept laid out for you to help fund this project, which is, look, it hit the goal, it's exceeding the goal, and it's not a deterrent. Doesn't mean that you can't help her out anymore. If you like this stuff, you enjoyed this interview, you see what she's doing online, even her other artwork, you want to support her in any way, shape, or form, go to Kickstarter right now for the next few days and throw a couple bucks her way, because the more she gets, the better the projects will be and the more she can do. I called you Salem, sorry. Sam, what is your social media if people want to check out your other works?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sam Sawyer. SAM Sawyer. Yep.
All right. And for Salem stuff, also, if you want to see some of the things that she was working on before all of this, you can go to the Salem series on YouTube and check that out as well. Sam, I wish you nothing but the best. I hope this is a major success for you. And then, next year when all this stuff is showing up in Hot Topic and I reach out, I'm like, hey, can I get a signed poster, that you'll ignore me and block me?
Never.
I appreciate your time and much success to you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome. I appreciate it.
And that's it. Thank you so much, Sam Sawyer. Thank you for listening to this special edition of It's Erik Nagel, and that has been myself. You can find me on social media, eRock Radio across the board, but more importantly, this show you can help out on social media. It's Erik Nagel across the board on all of that. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you like this show, you're obviously listening to it, tell 2 friends so they can tell 2 friends, etc., etc. We're on the iHeart app, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. If you have Alexa, turn this down. Hold on. Alexa, play the program It's Erik Nagel. It's probably telling you it doesn't know what you're talking about. Or it is playing the program for you. It's 50-50 sometimes. Who knows? But anyway, tell everybody you can if you really enjoy this program. We will be back soon with Giddles, with Zia. Everybody will be back in attendance for another episode. So until next time, everybody, be excellent to each other and have a wonderful time. And we'll be seeing you.
It's Erik Nagel.
Alas, we're out of time.
Follow It's Erik Nagel on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For ways to listen to the show, go to itseriknagel.com. And remember to tell 2 friends so they can tell 2 friends.
And they can tell 2 friends. And they can tell 2 friends. And those 2 friends can tell 2 friends.
Well, you get the idea.
Keep it real, homies.